Hi everyone, welcome to my Treasure the Award. Hope you are doing good. So in today's video I'm going to be sharing about a topic that all of us can relate and all of us have been through, and maybe some of us are still going through it right now, and that subject is waiting. And for waiting, I thought I'll share from one of my favorite Bible stories and one of my favorite characters in the Bible, which is Joseph in the book of Genesis. And in June I had already made a video on the subject of delay from the life of Joseph, but today I'm going to be sharing about certain things that I didn't share in that video, so I'll be building on his story, so stay tuned. So I'll be sharing from that part of Joseph's life from when he is in prison, but let me just catch you up with his story. So Joseph has a dream when he's a child that God is going to put him in a place of authority, and then his brothers are jealous of him, so they sell him into slavery. Potiphar purchases him as a slave. He serves under Potiphar, and then Potiphar's wife accuses him of trying to sleep with her, and then Potiphar throws him into prison. He is a prisoner for quite a while, and then Pharaoh's cupbearer and baker are also thrown into prison. So this is where I am going to begin sharing from. So then in prison, I just want to highlight Joseph's attitude. First of all, Joseph is somewhere, let's say around the age of 28 at this point. He's sold into slavery at 17. He's around 28. We know this because he is out of prison at 30, which is 2 years after this incident. So he's around 28. He's been in Egypt as a slave plus prisoner for somewhere around 10-11 years. And Joseph's attitude in prison is something worth studying, because he sees the cupbearer and the baker sad, and he goes and asks them, "Why are you sad?" Which is a very interesting question to ask someone in prison, especially the person asking why is the other prisoner sad has been a slave plus prisoner for a good 10-11 years. So just think of Joseph's mindset, and let's put ourselves in his shoes when we are in a season of waiting for maybe even lesser than that, and not even in prison. Maybe we are waiting for things, good things, like a wife, or a job, or a raise, or a promotion, or recognition, whatever it may be. It may be a good thing, and you're not really in prison. Yet we might start complaining, we might start bickering, we might be like, oh my God, God isn't really hearing me, God is not listening to me, I don't know what is the cause of this delay, maybe it's my sin, I wish that person did this in my favor, whatever it may be. But Joseph's attitude is, hey, why are you sad in prison? Which is really interesting, right? And so the baker and the cupbearer just share their dreams. They've seen two similar, unique dreams, and Joseph interprets their dreams, and he tells the cupbearer that you're going to get reinstated and so on and so forth, and he tells the baker that your head is going to be lifted off and you're going to be hung. And he literally asks the cupbearer to remember him. So I'm just going to read that verse, which is in Genesis chapter 40 verse 14. He says, "But remember me when it is well with you, and please show kindness to me. Make mention of me to Pharaoh, and get me out of this house. For indeed I was stolen away from the land of the Hebrews, and also I have done nothing here that they should put me into the dungeon." So here we can see that while Joseph has a very optimistic and very positive attitude, and he's not lost his faith in God, he is still longing to get out of prison. He is still longing to be home, be where he belongs and whatever, right? He doesn't want to be languishing in prison. He doesn't know what's going on. And so he's like, okay, fine, I've done you a favor by interpreting your dream. I've told you you're going to get out of prison, you're going to be reinstated. So all he's asking is, can you remember me? And can you relate to that plea? Can you relate? There may be times when you've gone through a difficult situation, you've been waiting, and you just feel like God isn't moving, and maybe I need to take matters into my own hands. Maybe I need to ask somebody, can you go and talk to this person in my favor? Or can you do this thing? Can you talk to that guy, maybe, through him I can get that job, or maybe I can get that raise, or maybe if I, please this person, maybe this person will show me favor. Maybe we can all relate to trying to take things into our own hands. And so that is exactly what Joseph was doing in that situation. But what happens? The cupbearer goes, the things play out exactly the way he interpreted the dream, but the cupbearer forgot Joseph. It literally says he doesn't remember him. And so I would imagine Joseph is like counting days. He's like, okay, this is the day that the cupbearer is going to tell Pharaoh about me. And then it goes to the next day. And the next day is like, this is the day he's going to tell the Pharaoh about me. And so day after day turns into week after week, turns into month after month. And then finally it turns into 2 whole years of waiting for the cupbearer to remember him. So Joseph has been in prison for 2 years. His hope is hanging on the cupbearer remembering him. And maybe you can relate to his plight. Maybe you have been waiting for a long time and you've asked people for help, you've asked people to remember you, you've asked people for favors, or maybe you've been waiting for a life partner and so you have asked people to find someone for you, or you have gone looking and nothing has panned out. No one has come through for you and you're kind of hopeless. The people you had your hope in have forgotten you, and so you're in a season where you feel hopeless. And I want to touch on that. Maybe Joseph also was wrestling with this feeling of hopelessness, but yet he still had to wait for 2 years. Why was that? If the cupbearer remembered Joseph when Joseph asked him to remember him, when the cupbearer went and spoke to Pharaoh, and the cupbearer remembered Joseph and told him, you know what, this Hebrew slave in prison, he interpreted my dream and he is there for no wrongdoing, and Pharaoh released him. Let's say Pharaoh released him. What would Joseph be at that point? Joseph would just be an ex-con. He would just be an ex-prisoner, Hebrew slave. That's it. He would not have any position of authority in Egypt. Right? So why do you think Joseph had to wait for 2 years? Joseph had to wait for Pharaoh to see the dream. It wasn't time for Pharaoh to see the dream, and so Joseph had to wait. Not because of any wrongdoing on his part, not because of anything he had done, but he had to wait for God's timing. And so at the appointed time, when Pharaoh sees the dream, the cupbearer, boom, he has this, oh yeah, I know this guy in prison who can interpret dreams. And so he goes and tells Pharaoh, and then Pharaoh goes and he's already asked, the wise men of Egypt to try to interpret his dream, and no one can interpret it, no one can make sense of it. And then he calls this Hebrew prisoner to come and interpret his dream. And Joseph interprets his dream. Pharaoh is mind blown, Pharaoh is very happy. And so Pharaoh releases him from prison, but not only releases him, puts him in a position of power and authority over Egypt. Now Joseph is ruler of Egypt, second to none but Pharaoh. Imagine that. Joseph, this prisoner, this slave, this Hebrew slave, is now like the prime minister of Egypt, only because it happened according to God's appointed time. So what do we see from this part of Joseph's story? What we can see is that God is a promise-keeping God, correct? Because Joseph has a dream when he's a child and God has promised this thing. But when you read about the dream, it doesn't look as grand as what God has done now, right? All you can understand is that, okay, God is positioning Joseph above his family, right? It looks like his brothers are going to be under him and his parents are going to be under him. That's about it. But now all of a sudden, all of Egypt is under Joseph. And Joseph had to be in that position for Israel to survive, for that lineage of Abraham to continue, and for Jesus to come from that lineage. Imagine that. All of these things had to play out exactly the way it had to play out. Exactly the way that God had planned for it to play out. And so, maybe the promise that God has spoken over your life may seem rather small. Or, you may not, based on what is going on in your life, you might be wondering, I don't even know if any of this has meaning, But I want you to understand, from Joseph's life, the enemy is going to equip people, circumstances and different things to pull you away from that promise, to delay you, to do things to make you second guess, to make you take matters into your own hands, to make you lose hope. But I want to encourage you that if God has a plan for your life, which scripture tells us that He does, nothing can change that plan, provided it will happen at His appointed time. But when it does, it's going to be mind-blowing. Joseph could never have imagined the magnitude of what God is going to do. And God is going to do something amazing for you too. So that is what I had to share for today. So if you have been following us, you will be aware that Charlotte released the prophetic word in the beginning of this month, saying that this month is the month of sudden breakthroughs, which means that we have entered a season of sudden breakthrough. So on that note, I want to encourage you by saying that if you have been waiting for a long time, then I want you to trust that just as when Joseph was not expecting anything, God suddenly broke through for him. In like manner, at the appointed time, God is going to suddenly break through for you in an absolutely mind-blowing manner, where you will know and you will testify that this can only happen by the living God. So don't lose hope. Trust in God, trust in His faithfulness, and be blessed. So that's all from me. I hope you enjoyed this video and were blessed by it. Please let us know in the comments. And also, if you are seeing the fulfillment of the prophetic words that Charlotte has released, if you have seen them come to pass, or if you are seeing them come to pass, please let us know in the comments, because it will really bless us. And if you're new around here, please don't forget to subscribe to our channel. And while you're at it, do like and share this video with your friends and family. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you again in the next video. Bye!